Hello everyone, my name is Devin, and thank you for tuning into my channel, Devin's Mastermind. So what we're gonna talk about first, we're gonna talk about the Hawks, the Clippers and Suns matchup for Game 6, and the Georgia Clemson matchup this coming year. So first one I want to get into it, I want to get into them Hawks. I am so mad because Trae Young is ruled out for Game 4. If y'all haven't heard, the game starts in like 20 minutes, and I heard that he won't be available today. So it's sad if you're a Hawks fan or an Atlanta fan, period. Because I really want them Hawks to go to the NBA Finals. But without Trae Young, you really can't do nothing. And it's horrible. It's horrible. I feel sad for the Atlanta fans. I feel sad for myself because I love Atlanta Hawks. And I was born here in Georgia. So it's, it's a lot to process at this moment, y'all.
And you were just rooting for him, weren't you?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. You were so hurt.
Oh, it's okay, baby. It's okay. It just makes me so mad because it's like, why it has to happen to them good players? Why does it have to happen to the best players? Why does it?
Well, like we said, they know what they need to do next season. They're gonna be even better, and they need to get another decent player, to help out because Trae Young can't do it by himself and the other two. So hopefully, though I'm saying the Falcons, excuse me, the Hawks will have the money to also, get a good decent pick during the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Next season and can help, ice Trae out.
Yeah, totally. Because the thing is, the Hawks, when you look at the Hawks, you look at them as one of them underdog Cinderella teams, which means you were wondering, well, I never knew that this team was going to even be in the playoffs, let alone being farther to the Eastern Conference Finals, to the NBA Finals. Because when I saw the Hawks earlier, when I saw them first in the regular season, the Hawks were 14-20. They started the season 14-20. They fired their head coach. They landed a great coach, I think, in Nate McMillan, who was the head coach for the Indiana Pacers that previous year. He did a good job with them. They went 16-20 before the All-Star break, and then the Hawks kind of shocked us with 27-11 regular season to finish 41-31, and then they beat the Knicks in the playoffs, which the Knicks really weren't that good to me anyway. But all the Madison Square Garden fans, them Knicks fans are crazy because they celebrating and they only won one game in the playoffs, and they just celebrating like they didn't won the NBA championship since 1973, which is the last time they made it and they won the NBA championship. They won two. They won two in their recent history. They won in 1970 and they won in 1973. Now it's Brooklyn Nets time to win the championship for New York. It ain't the Knicks fans' time.
So let me ask you, Devin. This is his mom. So you don't think really the Hawks gonna be able to pull it out tonight without him?
I mean, not really because they really ain't got nobody. Like I said, if they had somebody like a CP3, Damian Lillard, any of those great players, any player from any team, just get one. I think the Hawks would be a championship team. But the thing is, they don't really have a big three. To me, they really have the big one, and that's Trae Young.
Well, hopefully they can get a big two also next season, like we said, and then hopefully we can do what we need to do and beat or get ready for the Western, these Western Conference teams. Anyway, because that's the main thing is getting and playing them and trying to get those wins because that's their conference is just way more I feel tougher or built with, and I hate to say better, but it's dominated.
Because the East ain't doing nothing. Like in the East, all you got is the 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Boston Celtics, and I'm gonna say, and the Bucks. That's all really you got. And if you and for those four teams, you have to top them, unless to be considered one of the best teams in the league, beating those four teams in the Eastern Conference. But I mean, the Hawks beat the 76ers. They did pretty good there. I thought they were honestly gonna be done in really 4 games, but they ended up shocking the world and beating the 76ers team, which the 76ers had a lot of problems anyway. A lot of folks were like Ben Simmons can't even make a free throw. He can't even shoot either. And Joel Embiid tried the best he could, but it was fun looking at the Hawks. That's all I gotta say. It was fun looking at the Hawks and their little ride to the Eastern Conference Finals, and like you said, they'll be back next year.
Yeah.
If we just had an extra player, I feel like that's the fill-in for Trae Young, we would be pretty okay, no matter if Trae Young is hurt or if Trae Young is not. But to me, we really need a big three in the East to be considered one of the top teams in the East.
There you go. You heard it from Devin. It's kind of reminding me this weekend we were looking at 30 for 30, and we were looking at it was the Celtics and the Lakers rivalry. Back in the day with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You had whoever else. It's bad I can't even recall all the
Magic
players.
Johnson.
Magic Johnson, the main one.
Yeah. Larry Bird.
Larry Bird, all of that, Carr, Worthy, all those good players, back then, and looking at basketball now, it's neat to see and how it's come, but I also kind of miss those times when I was I think we were looking at what they were mainly talking about, 84, the dynasty and all of that, 1984.
Lakers Celtics rivalry back in the 1980s.
And all of that, and I was only 3 then, but how far it's come, but I missed how, I want to say, it was technical, but not as technical as it is today.
Yeah.
And that's with any sport. Now, but just how they played and the players and the stuff they had to go through, if it was dealing with racism or just anything for that matter, it's quite different, but also somewhat the same in what you see today. And I know me and you were discussing earlier when I went on my lunch break, you were talking about how you felt the NBA, got, better behind, certain issues that are going on in the country, and not to say the NFL doesn't, but it seems like the NBA, they can do it, or it's a lot more individualized where you kind of can, or at least you may not feel scared to say and do the right thing for possibly though getting a slap on the wrist, so we might say, but also you just being a student athlete and sometimes feeling like too, I think a lot of people forget it's a lot of pressure, but then, sports these days, it's politics and money anyway, nonetheless, but sometimes feeling like you have to go along to get along, at times, and you just don't know what to do because you're caught between a rock and a hard place, but nonetheless, you have to end up doing what you feel is best for you and make sure you're able to lay your head down at night versus what everybody else may say or think. So could you expound a little bit on that as what we were talking about earlier today?
Yeah, I can expand on that a lot. Yeah, so it's hard being the athletes in these worlds, in this world these days. It's very, very hard because like you said, it's starting to deal with a lot of politics. Like in college, you're having a lot of NCAA violations of players, like maybe, or that school recruiting people, and then they end up paying the money, and then it's like, well, you violated the rules of the NCAA, and yes, it's crazy these days. It's just very crazy. And then with the NFL, I felt like with the NFL, I mean, they're good. Like when it comes to like folks, let's say, or great players who have passed away, they're good like with celebrating them. But like when it comes to like other things, I just feel like they're just not as like, ooh, yeah, let's do this to make this world a better place and all that stuff. And I felt like the NBA, with a lot of stuff that happened in 2020, I felt like the NBA did a little bit more. And, they had to play in the bubble. They had a lot of stuff saying like, let's end this and all that stuff. And I felt like the NFL, they had a little bit, but it wasn't like to the part where I felt like the NBA was like, yeah, like the NBA was like, yeah, like we need to do something about this. So, cause then, okay, looking at me as an athlete, it's hard, and it's especially hard being a boy, and let alone,
a black man at that, And you can say that you felt like the NFL tiptoes around to a certain extent, more so than maybe the NBA, or, well, those are the main two things we look at, but we do look at other professional leagues and whatnot, but the main two we talk about and look at, of course, is football and basketball. And you love football, but you felt that they tiptoed a little around too much
Yeah,
than they
right.
should have to be the NFL at that. Why do you think so? You think it's like you just said, it's politics and money, and they're scared.
Yeah.
Unlike we had one individual who wasn't scared,
Mhm.
but look what happened with all of that, and that's you can have a lot of, everybody has their own opinion. You respect everybody's opinion. Don't mean we have to agree
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
nonetheless, because right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless. And I think people forget, and they have to look at, just because one group may look at America a certain way, doesn't mean everybody else living here looks at it that way. And to be completely honest, you have to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly of history so that we don't repeat our mistakes. And
Mhm.
some of this may not would have happened, but you have to acknowledge, and whatever that looks like, apologize and do whatever to make those wrong rights. Even if it wasn't you during that time, still there's stuff still going on,
Mhm.
and we have to speak up, because if we don't get it right this time,
We'll never
it's
do it.
gonna continue, and we might be dead and gone, and the same stuff is still gonna play
Mhm.
out. But everybody say, well, why can't we just move on? There's a reason why. You can't just continue to do wrong and expect everybody in this country to have the same views that you have. And we could really break it down, but we're not going to do that today like
Mm.
that. But we want to try and keep it neutral to a certain
Yeah, keep it
extent.
100.
But if our country would realize that and sit down and talk and have these discussions, we might be in a better place. But people don't like to hear that they have done somebody or someone
Yeah.
wrong. And also, you can say, well, y'all do this and y'all do that. Okay, where did we learn it from? We had to have seen it as well.
Mhm.
So be careful. Not, but and that's just my feelings on it. And like I said, everybody got to like one another, but we all, respect. It's
Yeah.
earned, obviously, but you can't expect somebody to respect your views and whatnot if you don't respect theirs, at least to a certain extent, enough to hear them out.
Yeah, you hit that right on the nail.
Thank you, and I did not mean to take your show. So you
Oh,
continue,
it's fine.
and let's talk about
Oh, it's fine.
something else,
Oh,
or you can talk about and add to that as much as you would
yeah.
like.
So what we're gonna talk about, we're gonna get into a little bit about the Clippers Suns matchup, not for for game 6, but we also gonna see all the details for what happened in game 5. So y'all know who playoff P is. PG-13, Paul George. That dude scored 41 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. Now, and a lot of folks were down him because Paul George, he's a great player to me. He's a good, really great player, and then probably a future Hall of Famer. And like in the past few years in the playoffs, it's like it's like he wasn't on his element like as he's been now, especially with now Kawhi Leonard out since June 14th with that ankle injury. When the last time when he played the Utah, when they played against the Utah Jazz for the series for the West, advance to the Western Conference Finals. And usually some folks call him Pandemic P, some folks call him Playoff P, and I look at Paul George as Playoff P because I think in NBA, I think everybody expects, well, because they're in the pros, that they're supposed to just like do great. I mean, like you said, they like we said, you're always gonna have bad days. You're gonna have it where you're not gonna be like on top, and that might happen for a few years at times. But Paul George has kind of shown me that he can take this Clippers team to what they haven't been, which they haven't been to the NBA Finals. They just advanced to the Western Conference Finals because they were the only franchise to like the not advanced to like the conference finals. It took them like 50 years to do that, so it's crazy.
It is. It is. Ooh, ooh, it's a lot.
Yeah, like DeMarcus Cousins, they showed up. Patrick Beverly is doing a really good job on Devin Booker. I mean, Devin Booker, it looks like he at first he was looking like a star, but now as I look at Devin Booker, he hasn't really been looking that good, especially when he had that mask on in the game 2 and game 3. So
But like you
yeah,
said, Devin, we're playing in times. If it's not the pandemic, then there's other stresses, if I said it right, or stressors that can add to all of this craziness that we got going on. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say, or do you think, regardless of how good it is, or how good you are, is it safe to say, with all of this going on, you're not gonna always necessarily be at your best? Do you agree or do you disagree?
I mean, I agree with that because you're not always gonna be your best. Even though Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were looking they they're the best superstars, like they're the goats already. But okay, you got to look at okay, Paul George. Let's say Paul George is a totally different player from maybe a Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, some whatever James Harden, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, and PG, yeah, but he's a different player now. Now he's a star, but he's not like the greatest star to me, like how Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, and I'm gonna put LeBron James how they played. And in PG-13, he's never really been to a championship, let alone the Western Conference. Well, he was in the Western Conference Finals at one time, but he's never been to a NBA Finals
And
as a
how long
player.
has he been playing?
Paul George. Oh, Paul George has been playing for like 10, 11, 12 years because he played for the Fresno State Bulldogs. He got drafted, I think, by somebody. He got drafted by the Indiana Pacers from 2010 to 2017.
Okay.
Then he went to Oklahoma City Thunder where Russell Westbrook, the triple double king, he played for them for like 3 years, maybe 2 to 3 years, and now he's playing with the Clippers. This is his second year.
So, like you said, I don't think he's had enough experience yet.
Yeah. He's 31 years old. Yeah.
They're depending on those teams though too. You know, in that sense, because experience says a lot. Not saying he hasn't had enough experience in basketball, but I feel like, okay, let's look at your friend who you don't care for as much, and I don't either, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Tom Baby. But nonetheless, regardless, he has the experience of going and getting to Super Bowls and winning whatever other championships and this and that. And when you have that experience, you bring a lot to it. So if that team or teams haven't even been at all, or hasn't been in so many years, or he hasn't played with any, it's just a lot. It's a lot to cultivate. You get to these other teams, you've got to, and I always say, don't be so hard on y'all, because it takes a lot for a team to get in sync.
Like the NBA,
especially when you're in the rebuilding stages. It's not that easy. And then you're playing like this, whether it's the NBA or football. You're getting injuries, especially in football. You don't even really have enough time to heal from that stuff, or you back out there probably playing again anyway.
And you already hurt. You still got a sore Achilles or something, whatever is going on.
Right. So, and sometimes it's just finding that right fit, and you hope, I'm sure, and he hopes he's able to do so before, contracts or whatever go out, or they, become a free agent, or whatever the case may be, and so on and so forth.
And let me tell you this, in the NBA, okay, if you still have those same players that you maybe had from that last year, because like, let's say, okay, you went to the playoffs, you got to the second round or the first round, you lost in that, they likely fire you. And then, like, let's say when the next head coach for the NBA comes, you still have those same 2, 3, 4 players. I felt like, okay, well, maybe in the NBA, maybe they do good in their first season, but like when you look at football is really like a totally different sport. And don't get me wrong, and I also want to say college basketball is kind of the same too, because you're having guys that are leaving, going to the NBA draft, and maybe they're not that good that next year, but like football and basketball are totally different sports when it comes to like rebuilding and athletes and getting hurt and what's going on, and getting paid too.
So let's talk about this. Let's go and talk about Tom Brady. Let me ask you this. So I know how you feel about Tom Brady. I, for the most part, feel the same exact way. But do you think this past season, his presence, how much of a percentage do you think he brought? 25, 50, 75, 100%? Him being there and the experience he had, even though Tampa Bay is considered to have a good, decent defense team, or known as a defense team anyway, how much of him do you think really helped them get to the Super Bowl? Do you think he made a big difference, or really not so much since they were already a good, decent defense team?
I mean, I felt like he made a difference because, like, you had Jameis Winston starting there. Jameis Winston in his final season with Buccaneers, he threw 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, but he still passed for 5,000 yards. And that 30 interceptions was a little crazy to have because he threw like 4 or 5 interceptions each of a game almost. And when I look at Tom Brady, okay, well, Tom Brady's had more experience than Jameis Winston because Jameis Winston is like, well, he went to the NFL draft like around 2015, 2014. Tom Brady's been in the NFL draft since 1999, 2000. So it's a little different, but I think Tom Brady brought a good bit to the table because Tampa Bay already had a great defense in Vita Vea, Jason Pierre-Paul, Jamal Dean, Devin White, Carlton Davis, Antonio Wingfield, and whoever else that played on that team, Levante David, and whoever else that played on that team back in 2019. But I felt like Tom Brady made a little bit of a huge difference. I'm gonna get into that right now because from Tampa to go from not a playoff team, well, close to it, to a playoff team, Tom Brady threw 46 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, passed for like over 4,600 yards, and all that stuff. And for him to beat Washington, which Washington I kind of knew was gonna lose anyway. Now they do have a great defense too, and I think, like let's say if Tom Brady went there, he probably might have took Washington to the Super Bowl because because Washington has a great defense in Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and then Drew Brees. I love Drew Brees because he's to me my favorite player that I look up to, but he fortunately he couldn't throw the ball no more. You can kind of tell he was getting a little old, and he kind of kept getting hit real hard. He really was getting hit real hard, and he had like a fractured ribs and a collapsed lungs and all that. So I felt like it was his time to go.
And so you have resigned yourself to the fact you're okay with that now, because I know that hurt you for quite a minute. You were really hating that.
Yeah. And then, like Green Bay, which Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but I felt like Green Bay made some dumb moves in that game when Matt LaFleur told the kick the ball instead of for going for the not the go ahead, but like the touchdown, and then going for the 2 point conversion. Who does that in a football game? Obviously, some dumb coaches that don't really know about it. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter. All I'm trying to say is I would have took more of a risky. I wouldn't have just kicked the field goal and be close by 5 points, because then you know how Tom Brady is. Tom Brady can always pass that ball real good, or his team can move that ball, and then boom, the game's over. They run out the clock. Now that was very stupid.
You said it, and I'm just like you. I'm always the one in football. Take the risk.
Yeah.
Just take the risk. Go out with a bang, whether you win or lose. At least you try. I don't want to have to regret anything when the game is over, because at least I'm gonna take the risk.
Yeah. And then with that Chiefs, don't even get me started with that.
Oh Lord.
I mean, they had it where they had 4 offensive linemen that didn't play in the Super Bowl because of COVID issues and health and safety, and they were in the health and safety protocols. But
yeah,
I mean, you have to still give Tom Brady his props no matter what, because he still went in, beat 3 good teams. Washington, they weren't really that good because they had a losing record.
So if they did have Tom Brady, do you think they possibly still would have made it or went to the Super Bowl? Or
No,
you highly doubt it?
I highly doubt it. Because I felt like if Jameis Winston was still playing quarterback, they would have lost. Like, let's say if they were playing Green Bay or Seattle or somebody, maybe even the Saints, even in the playoffs, I think they still would have lost that with Jameis Winston being there. But obviously with Tom Brady, it's like he brings that team together. Because for 1 year, last year was his first year. For him to do that in his first year,
that's crazy.
It's unheard of. It's
really so when you dissect it all, I mean, regardless whether you're a Tom Brady fan or not, him coming had a good bit of pull. Now, you ask other people, and it could be, they might have a different answer for you. But I think me and Devin pretty much, agree. And not to say Tampa Bay is still, they're a good, decent team. But if they did get Tom Brady and got somebody else, which I don't know who that would have been, though, it's nice to think about. And let's hit on this other thing, or maybe one more thing before we run out of time. I know me and you were talking earlier, like I said earlier today when I went on my lunch break, and I said I wish you could have it, or we could have something set up with the NFL, not like an all-star game, But it's pretty much, it doesn't even matter who's won so many games. Well, actually, it does to a certain extent
Yeah.
because I doubt fans would pick a team who hasn't, but that hasn't won that much. But if we were able to pick 4 to 6 teams, no matter whether it was the AFC or the NFC and all that crap, just that the fans wanted to see play. And mine went like this. So I'm going to tell you my 4 to 6 teams and break them up 3 games. And Devin can tell you his. So I had said, Devin was like, where would that happen? I'm like, in a perfect world, but it's not. But if fans got to decide at the beginning or the end of the season or just some other time, especially while we're going through COVID, you need stuff to look at and go through. And 2020 was horrible with everything that happened with George Floyd and so on and so forth. Rest in peace. But I said, how about my teams would be, okay, in this way, the Falcons against the Titans. Now that Julio is going to the Titans, but I'm still love the Falcons. I don't care what nobody say, but I am a Julio fan as well, and I still don't care what nobody say. Then I would have the Bears against the Browns, mainly because Justin Fields paying for the Bears and the Browns, Nick Chubb, and so on and so forth. And then my other 2 team was, who did I say?
Let me think.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember
It's okay.
that. Oh, I know. I said, was it the Bucks and the Patriots? Yeah, that's what I said. So my 6 teams, but 3 games, it would be Falcons against the Titans, the Bucks against the Patriots, and the Bears against the Browns. So who would be your 6 teams, 3 games?
16, 3 games. Okay.
That you would match up.
That matchup. Our matchup, like rematch, like I would like to see the Saints and the Bucks against each other.
Saints and the Bucks.
I like you said, I would love to see the Browns against. I would love to see the Browns against the Chiefs.
Okay.
That was a pretty good. Yeah.
Browns against the Chiefs.
And then for my last game, I would pick. Probably the Titans and the Seahawks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we have some of the same teams in there. I think we have about 3 teams that we both still pick, but different opponents they would have. So guys, you tell us your thoughts. What would be your 6 teams, 3 games? So we'll end it there, but please like, comment, subscribe. And like I said, and hit the notification button and share. But put in the comments, as long as I know how to work it, who would be your 6 teams for the NFL and the 3 games where you would just love to see these games played out by, these teams, regardless of their records and so on and so forth. But if the fans got to have a chance, what would be your 3 games and your 4 to 6 teams, or 2 games if you're only picking 4. But let us know. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe down below. And we're also trying to come up with like a nation name or something for Devin's followers, on here, especially if you our subscribers and so on and so forth. Or just give us some thoughts, some opinions, some ideas of what you think. And thank you for tuning in to Devin's Mastermind. And we will see you soon.
All right. Believe Atlanta. Good night.